Hi there, my name is Andy Morris. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and today I'm interviewing another U.S. Army veteran named Nathaniel Overgaard. We both currently live in the Tri-Cities in eastern Washington, and he's going to go over how Columbia Basin Veteran Opportunity Center and the DAV helped him get his VA claim started and for him to get taken care of because of cancer with the burn pits over in Iraq. This video is not intended to glorify him. He wants everybody to know that, but he does want to just give everybody hope out there that's fighting with their VA claim, that keep fighting. He wants you to get into the system and get taken care of like him and his family are. And I'm also going to interview Paul Lamm. He's our local veteran service officer with the Disabled American Veterans, DAV. He works at the Columbia Basin Veteran Opportunity Center, and he's going to go over a little bit on how he got the claim going for Nathaniel Overgaard and his family. Now, burn pits were used over in Iraq and Afghanistan to get rid of military waste on our bases over there. A lot of us were exposed. We didn't think about it at the time, but we came home and we started getting sick. And I encourage everybody to get into their VA system, register with the burn pits if you've been exposed. And, you know, for all those that have lost loved ones due to cancer and other illnesses, my heart goes out to you and your families. Thank you again for watching this video. It's intended to give all those hope that were exposed to the burn pits, that lived around them, that breathed them, and all of the other environmental hazards and toxins you were exposed to over in Iraq and Afghanistan. Hope that your claim will get into the Veteran Affairs disability system as well. Go see your local Disabled American Veteran Service Officer if you need help with your claim. They were really helpful with mine. As you see in this interview with Nathaniel Overgaard, they were helpful with his. And just remember, there is hope. Don't give up on getting your claim into the Veteran Affairs system. And thank you again so much, everybody, for your service and sacrifice to this great country. All right, so today I'm with Nathaniel Overgaard. You're a U.S. combat veteran, and we're just going to do a little interview on how the Veteran Opportunity Center and how the DAV helped you get to where you're at today with some cancer that you're living with now. And we're just going to go into a little bit of detail on, who you are, where you came from, about you and your family, what your hobbies and interests are, what you did in the Army, your deployments, and then what led you here today to kind of share with the world on what's going on with you as a veteran and how we can help the rest of those out there that are suffering and dealing with the same issues that you have. So if you want to go ahead, just start out with, what's your name? Where you grew up, and then tell me a little bit about you and your family.
My name is Nathaniel Overgaard. I was born in Portland, Oregon. Lived in Vancouver, Washington, the better part of my life. When I was 21, I decided I was going to join the military as an adventure to get schooling, money for schooling. And that just so happened to be July of 2001, just a few months before the entire world changed. So I enlisted in July. I didn't even go to basic training until February. And at that time, I was living with my parents, and And little did we know how much, everything was going to change as far as the world goes. And then went to basic training, I was in the reserves. I started doing, I was a civil affairs specialist in the Army Reserves.
Okay.
And it's a confusing job to begin with. It takes so much of what you do out in the civilian world and puts it into the Army, as opposed to the reverse, where you take skills from the Army back into the civilian world.
Mm-hmm.
And so fast forward a few years, I ended up, it was 2003, beginning of 2004, me and my wife started dating, and we got married, and about 3 months after that, 3 weeks after that, I got told, hey, you're getting deployed. And it was like, okay, well, when do I have to be ready?
Mm-hmm.
Can be ready Tuesday.
And you're still in the reserves at that time?
I was still in the reserves.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, when do you think you're ready? Can you be ready Tuesday? No, I can't be ready Tuesday. I still have marriage paperwork to fill out. I still have everything. It's just a crazy, crazy whirlwind experience. They're like, well, we need you to go do training up in Wisconsin. Okay, well, we'll see what we can do. So they gave me 5 whole days to get ready. And then we went out to Wisconsin and we trained for 20 days. I got 2 days back in Vancouver before we had to go down to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which is where, at the time, Civil Affairs deployed out of.
Mm-hmm. Were you attached to a Civil Affairs unit then, an active duty one?
No, there's actually only one, or there was at the time only one active duty Civil Affairs, and that was out of Fort Bragg. But most of Civil Affairs was reserve.
Okay. And
I was with the 364 Civil Affairs Brigade in Portland, Oregon. But I was told, I got augmented though to I believe it's the 407 Civil Affairs out of Mattydale, New York, for deployment. So I had to not only was I getting deployed on short notice, I was also getting deployed with nobody I knew. Nobody I had trained with, nobody I had done anything with.
Were you ready for that?
No, I wasn't. And especially, me and my wife had just gotten married. So we're still trying to develop what our life is going to be. And then to get told, oh, by the way, your life's going to get put on pause for a year at least. Mm-hmm. So.
Did you hurry up, get all your power of attorneys done and say, hey, hon, you're on my life insurance now, bye?
I got all that stuff done and it was out the door. And that was in, I want to say June. Yeah, that would have been early July, mid-July of 2004. And I didn't come, and then went on deployment. I was deployed to Iraq.
Okay.
My area of operation was actually in East Baghdad for a large period of my deployment.
What were the key cities over there?
Excuse me.
In eastern Baghdad?
Eastern Baghdad, there was Sadr City, there was Rustamiyah, the district was Rustamiyah that we were.
Okay.
And as Civil Affairs, you go out in teams. So we were a 5-man team that was given to the commander of whatever FOB we were on. And they would give us dedicated assets to go out and do community relations patrols, or we'd find out how, the power and just figure out how things are going in the community to a degree. And we'd go out and we'd hand out soccer balls, and we were the feel good side of the Army at the time. And we would go out on missions 3-4 times a week, and we'd stay back at the fobs and for a day to take care of all of our paperwork and whatnot. And then as the deployment went on, we actually moved out of East Baghdad, and we were more in central or southern Baghdad, and we were doing our job down south of Baghdad in, I can't remember the name of the city, but we rolled around, but our main element was up in Taji.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to go up there every week for a meeting.
And Taji is not a fun city. I was in and out of there a lot in Taji.
And there was going up there. You were going by. It was risky going up there. I mean, there was.
What was that, Highway 1? I think that ran.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And so we'd go up and we'd go back and forth, and we stayed at 3 or 4 different fobs, and on at least 2 of them that I can remember, they had burn pits that were absolutely horrible, all dependent upon which way the wind was going. So my deployment lasted roughly, total time away from home was 13 and a half months.
Okay. What fobs? Do you remember the names of the fobs or not?
Well, they all change names so frequently. There was Volunteer. Then the one to the south, I believe, was Cuervo. That was the one that used to be a training facility for the Iraqi army.
Okay.
Then there was Fob Gunslinger we were at, and then we were obviously up at Taji for a couple of weeks before we settled in, and there was one other one we stayed at, and I can't remember the name of it.
How often were these burn pits burning?
I would say they were burning fairly constantly.
Round the clock, most of the time. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Anytime you drove into blood, it was just a given. You could smell the burn of it. So, yeah, living around that. Did you live around that day in, day out? Go to sleep with it on, blowing in your face?
Yes, there were. It was crazy how fast it could change too. Just from everything's good, it's a good day, then all of a sudden, poof, it comes in, and from shift in the wind or whatever. It's just.
So I know when I was there, and burn pits weren't in the forefront of my mind. That was not an issue. That was not a worry of mine when I was there. I didn't even think about the health hazards. None of that, and I know I lived in it, breathed in it, slept in it. Did you think about burn pits while you were there?
No. We're focused on the mission. We're focused on what we need to get done. There wasn't a thought in my mind that they could be burning everything we threw out, everything.
Yeah. So when you got back from Iraq, you got back in 2005?
I got back in 2005.
Okay. And when did you start noticing some changes? I know personally me, when I got back, I started running and I was like, wow, I can hardly breathe. What's going on? Did you have any immediate feelings or changes that you were thinking, what the heck is this?
At the time, there was nothing that I could put my finger on. Being a reservist, you're not working out and running every single day, doing PT every single day, and like I'm not saying you're not doing it, but it's not something that is forced upon you, part of your daily job. And so you go about your regular job and you work exercise in when you can. And so I just thought I was getting out of shape through a lot of the stuff that would happen. I just assumed it was because I wasn't working out as much as I should, or running as much as I should, or whatnot. But I didn't draw any correlations between that and the burn pits.
Mm-hmm. So what were some of the symptoms you started feeling?
Shortness of breath at times, and just poor sleep was my big one, which later it was determined that I had sleep apnea. From the sleep apnea, they in fact, it was 4 years ago I got diagnosed with sleep apnea, so I got put on the CPAP machine, and everybody I've ever heard that's put the machine on says, I slept amazing for the first time in a long time. And I put the machine on and I still felt like crap. Nothing changed, I didn't feel any different. And this went on for a while, and then I went back in to see my sleep doctor. My sleep doctor said, well, per all the information on the SIM card, it's helping you out. You're just one of those unlucky people that doesn't feel any better. And I accepted that. And I went on with my day. And fast forward 3 years later, I started having issues swallowing. I would chew food, swallow, and it kind of get stuck in my throat. And that happened every once in a while. I didn't think much of it. And then it started happening more and more frequently. So I was finally like, all right, I need to go get this checked out. So I went into my doctor. I was like, hey, I need to see somebody. This is weird. This is what's going on. And he's like, okay, well, I'll send you to an ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Was this through the VA, through your private?
This is through
doctor?
private. This is all through private doctor.
Okay.
And so I walked in to the ear, nose, and throat doctor. He introduced himself. I said, hi, this is who I am. And he's like, all right, well, let's take a look. Walked up to me with 2 tongue depressors, put one on the front of my tongue, one on the back, and goes, well, there's your problem. You have something that's not supposed to be there. Like, no, I literally hadn't sat down for more than 3 or 4 minutes in the doctor's office, and they found a mass he found a mass in my neck that was 1.5 inches by 1 inch in my throat. Okay. And that's when it was really started to like, oh, okay. And at this point, I still didn't know much about the burn pits and how people have been linking stuff to that. And all I know at this time is I'm 36 years old at the time. Well, maybe I was 37. I've never smoked, never chewed, never done drugs, lived life like they always tell you to, don't do these things. And now I have a mass in my neck. At the time we didn't know what it was. And there was part of me that was like, what happened? Like how did this happen? And so they did, they went down through my mouth and removed as much as they could and went off to the lab, and they came back after it took 2 weeks and they had to send it up to the University of Washington. It came back that it was cancerous. And oh, okay.
What stage was the cancer?
I honestly never got told what stage it was. The type of cancer it is well differentiated liposarcoma. And basically all they said the entire time was, well, if we can get it all, it normally doesn't come back. They were unable to get it all. After I had the second surgery, we went around and we battled with different insurances about trying to find a doctor, got actually turned down by a doctor that said he couldn't do the surgery.
At this time, were you looking at all to the VA, or? We
weren't looking at all.
No.
We still hadn't linked anything. And then my wife actually had a friend call her and say, hey, have you researched anything about the burn pits? And we're like, what? Or have you looked into like his deployment? We're like, what? And so then we started doing a little more research into it, and we're like, a lot of similar stories where people come back and then down the road this happens. And now I don't know if for sure that it was caused by a burn pit, but I know I never smoked, I never chewed, I never did any drugs, and I know that I did everything I could to lead as healthy of life as I possibly could. And the only thing in my life was my deployment, where I was exposed to all sorts of stuff that I don't even know.
So, kind of, did you reach out to any of your team that you deployed with and find out what they were feeling, if they're having the same symptoms?
I did, and I actually got a hold of my my sergeant over there, who he lives in Portland still. He was diagnosed about, I want to say 6 years ago, with maybe 7 years ago, with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That has also been service connected for him. Mm-hmm. So he was telling us about everything as well, and then I talked to my major, who was our team leader, and he's now a lieutenant colonel, and he says he's fine. But I was talking to everybody, and we went over some of the things we were exposed to, and we talked about the burn pits a bit. And so me and my wife decided to put in a claim, because I don't know where else this would have been. In talking to all my doctors all were on board. They're like, yeah, we don't know where else this would have happened. Given your life history and whatnot, we don't know where else this would have happened. So in as part of my evidence for my claim, I had 3 separate doctors write letters that stated that they believe that it occurred due to my exposures overseas. And then I had buddy letters to support, the different things that we had gone through and different places we were.
So now that you're submitting the claim, are you still fighting cancer at this time, or did you
I am.
get through your treatment?
I am. I went through, they did a bilateral neck dissection, so they had to cut me from here to here, do a partial laryngectomy, so I no longer have an Adam's apple. And then they went in, they got out what they could, as far down as they could, so they could leave my vocal cords, and as far up as they could go, so that I could still have function of my tongue and still eat. During the healing process, I also had to have a trach for about a month, and which meant very limited being able to speak and communicate to family members. And I also had a feeding tube that I had to have for 4 months. And then about a month post surgery, I had to go through 7 weeks of radiation, which was by far the worst of all of it. I was so tired and exhausted, and it's right there in the middle of the summer. You want to be out doing stuff with your kids, and so we planned a few trips, and we did some pretty amazing things over the summer, but I was exhausted. I was exhausted, absolutely wore out and beat down, but I knew I needed to make memories, because you never know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And you needed to cherish everything, all the time that you have, because out of this I've learned tomorrow's not promised. And I know that's cliche and everything, but it truly isn't. and so today's all we got. So let's go and make the most of today. But
so when you were filing your claim, how did you start? Did you go try to do it yourself? How did you get your claim going with the VA?
I had a friend of my wife's point us in a direction of one of the service officers in the area. And we went in there, and I didn't have the greatest feeling when I left. Well, this one's gonna be, I don't know how you're gonna prove it. I don't know this, I don't know that, and it left me defeated when I first went in. And then
you felt blown off.
I did. I really did. And then we were pointed in the direction of another service officer with the DAV, and we went in there, and then we filled out paperwork to have switch over. So they represented me, and so the DAV represented me. And
was that here locally?
That was here in Pasco, Washington.
Okay.
That's Paul Lamm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And so how do you feel when you started talking to him? Did you feel like he was on your side? He was going to make it happen?
The biggest thing I felt was, he's like, yours is a hard case. He goes, I love hard cases, and I'm going to work for you. And I left feeling, like that I may have a shot, and then it was one of those things where he would, and hey, we need this paperwork, boom, go and get it, and the gathering of the evidence and everything went quick. Ultimately, I think my entire claim went quick. It was only 10 months. Whether 10 months is quick or not, I don't know, but
no, it's pretty quick. Mine was a little over 13 months, and I thought that went quick from what some of my friends were dealing with. So, so you heard about the Veteran Opportunity Center here in town. You heard about the DAV, that they're here in town.
yes.
Was that from a friend, or how did you find that information?
That was actually, we went in to Congressman Newhouse's office.
Okay, here in town?
Out in Richland, yes.
Yeah.
And Ryan, forgot his last name.
Okay.
He actually gave us Paul's card.
Oh, well. It seems to be a quite little network here in town with the veterans and where to go. So it's good to hear that you got help when you went into the.
Right.
What prompted you to go to the senator's office?
We went. I have a friend who. Is 100% disabled and whatnot. He said, it's good to make contacts with people like that so they see you. He said, don't necessarily ask them for help with your case or anything, but make contacts.
Okay.
And so that was what that was.
So now that you're in the Veteran Affairs system, are you using any of their medical?
I was also diagnosed with, my claim went through 100% for the cancer and then all the residuals and various other things. And I was also diagnosed with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard thing with PTSD is I always assumed I always looked at it like it was PTSD was once Drew came home, was waking up in the middle of the night and beating his wife on accident, or the guy who has to excuse themselves from social events and whatnot because it's just too overwhelming, and I never thought it was me, and through this whole thing I've learned that there's so much more to it, so many things that it affects you in your life, your hypervigilance, your never being able to relax, settle down, turn your brain off from thinking of situations of what's going on around you, and there's so much more to it. So through that, I've learned that going and talking to somebody really does help, and so I'm using the VA to go and I go every 2 weeks. I go in and I sit down and I talk to somebody, and even if nothing's happened, but it's enough just to talk about how life's been going and what's been going on, and so I've been using that a lot. Free eye care, that helps. When I got my vision test done, there's so many things that I can use it for. I haven't started using the VA as my primary care provider yet because I'm still recovering and healing from my surgeries and whatnot, I want to have the people who actually worked on me still be part of my care team.
Yeah, makes sense.
So at least for a while I plan on, and as we do stuff, because every 3 months I have to go and get another scan done and get scoped and make sure nothing's coming back.
So are you in remission right now then?
Nobody has used the word remission.
Okay.
All they said was, we're gonna get as much of it out. Well, we didn't get clear margins. Okay, now what? Now we're gonna go and zap it with radiation, and we're gonna hope that kills the rest of it, but we're not gonna know.
So how do you feel the cancer is kind of changing your life? I know you said definitely you look at it, life is precious now.
Yeah, it's perspective. It's all about perspective. That has, I mean, the way I looked at it was my kids. I could easily have crawled in my room, curled up in a ball in my bed and cried for days at a time. And there were times I wanted to.
All right, Nate, so you're now, you do have a disability from the VA, and you said it took a little bit over 10 months, which is pretty great. Their turnaround time has really picked up, which is really helping out a lot of veterans. Have they ever came right out and said that this claim is from burn pits, or are they just making a service-connected disability?
In none of the paperwork that I received do they reference burn pits. However, in all the evidence I submitted, whether it's my buddy's statements or it's my doctor's letters that they wrote for me, every single one of them has the word burn pit in it. So that was part of my evidence.
Yeah, so they're taking that evidence and they're awarding you disability for your cancer that's service-connected from a deployment. So I would call that kind of a win for you and everybody else that's out there fighting for burn pit exposure. I know myself, I've been around a lot of burn pits, and I don't know what's to come, but I know that, like I told you, I had what I felt was environmental asthma and some, I guess the VA kind of calls it obstructed, I don't know, something wrong with the lungs, but no explanation, and thyroid went bad, gallbladder had to be taken out. There's a lot of people out there dealing with stuff similar and fighting cancer or dying from cancer pretty quickly. I mean, it's pretty rapid. They get diagnosed with cancer, they're young like us, They were veterans over in Iraq, Afghanistan, both. And what do you just want to tell them? I know before we started this interview, you said, this is going to be hard because you're not wanting to be on the spotlight, and we're not trying to, make you the spotlight of burn pits or anything, but I think this is more or less just trying to help others out there understand that there is hope. Is that what, what would you tell them?
I put in my claim, like literally all my evidence that I feel I had was the letters from the doctors. And again, we reference burn pits all over in those letters and from my buddy's letters, and I can't for sure say that that's what it was, but I don't think it's ever worth stopping and quitting because I mean I said earlier, like, I wanted to be an example for my kids. Well, a lot of the people out there that are suffering and doing this stuff, you just can't quit and be an example to your families. You can't quit. There's always hope. I mean, I didn't think it was going to go through. It took 10 months and they came back, and I was floored. My jaw dropped. I was like, wow, because I didn't feel like I had evidence.
But you knew inside.
But I knew inside what was going on. So if they would have came back and they would have said, no, you didn't get it, and I would have fought on and everything else like that, because I want everybody to get what they deserve. And there's a lot of stuff going on out there that is getting swept underneath the carpet. Nobody's taking into account, like, all the problems you've had. You've lined those things up. You read about that all the time. These people are having these problems, and the VA is just completely denying any connection to the burn pits. The Vietnam era had Agent Orange, and they later came out and said it was the dioxins. They were finding I read reports that stated that they were finding the same dioxins in the air quality around the burn pits. Mm-hmm. So there's always hope. It's just we have to keep fighting. We just have to keep trying, and eventually, I believe it will come to light.
Yeah, and similar to you, I reached out to the DAV right away when I was told you need to start a VA claim, because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. I heard nightmares. So I'd recommend the DAV.
Definitely go to the DAV.
Yes. I became a life member as soon as they got my claim in. They told me, that it's been submitted, took 13 months, but they told me wait patiently. Here's the backlog. You're going to get a response. And I got a response, and it was a first time go for me. I didn't have to fight anything. And I became a life member of the DAV. So I know myself, I encourage everybody to reach out and let the DAV help you. And not trying to promote the DAV, but I know that they were very helpful for me, and sounds like they were really helpful for you.
Very helpful, very helpful.
Well, I thank you again, Nate, for today, and I hope this helps others out there learn more about burn pits, if they're exposed to them, if they're feeling the same way, if they're fighting cancer, if they're fighting just the symptoms of, we're not supposed to be fighting as young, fit American veteran soldiers. Is there anything else that you want to say, or,
I hope this helps some people continue to fight, because that's what we need to do. I don't like being up here. I don't like being in front of the camera. I don't like being the face of anything for the most part. But it's something that I feel very strongly about. Our brothers in arms. And we need to stand up, and we need to keep going.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Good. So today I'm with I'm here at the VO, the Veteran Opportunity Center, and I'm with Paul Lamm. Paul, if you want to tell us a little bit about you and how you got involved in Nathan Overgaard's case.
Okay. I'm a Department Service Officer with the state of Washington, DAV. Our region covers 13 counties in Washington and 2 in Oregon. Basically, Nate presented himself into my office one day, and it was him and his wife, and they were discussing how they were running into roadblocks with processing his claim through the VA. And, I sat down. It was overwhelming because, to be honest with you, we had over 700 pages of documents that we needed to take a look at and see what plan of attack we were going to have. He had gone to another officer or service officer and just felt that, it wasn't the approach that needed to be taken. And so he wasn't getting any positive feedback from the VA about it either. We sat down, we reviewed everything. I told him how I wanted to attack the case and told him that all I could give is 100% of my effort. I couldn't guarantee anything. And we already knew that from the very beginning that this was going to be an uphill battle, because I had never heard of any air quality cases being successfully adjudicated out of Iraq or even Afghanistan. So, and then, seeing it on blogs, I knew it was going to be a battle. So we were in for the long haul. Submitted approximately 700 pages of evidence over the course of the 3 months. Never heard a rebuttal. Never heard a rebuttal back. Nathan went out to his comp and pen exam in Walla Walla, Washington, where he met with a CMP nurse, and she stated to him that his case was very solid and that it had been well represented, well put together, and that, in her opinion, her professional opinion, that it was going to be adjudicated positively. So it was approximately 3 weeks after. The family came into the office very jubilant and stated that they had won their case. And instead of being 100%, Nathan Overgaard and his family were considered special monthly compensation, which pushed the family's income up to $4,000. This hit home to me because I watched the family the year before, 2017, struggle. They were in danger of losing their house, and the entire family was in a tailspin. It was a downward spiral for them. We reached out throughout the community of veterans, and we did fundraiser after fundraiser after fundraiser, all the while waiting and hoping that the VA would look at this positively. I look at the whole case as the veteran stepped forward first and identified that he needed to help himself. And I looked at that, and I knew that there was an effort on the family's part to make sure that everything was done correctly. And so I stepped in and I said, I want to be your advocate. And basically from that point on, even today, meeting Nathan, it's overwhelming to see that we still have ways to go on him, because I just asked for another increase in his compensation for aid and attendance. That will go through. I have no doubt in my mind, because we have the backing of the DAV National on his case.
So when you say the increase, what is that going to go towards?
Well, okay, so right now with his medical condition, he needs basically a spotter. In military terms, he needs a spotter when he eats so that he doesn't asphyxiate on his food. And he also needs a spotter when he sleeps so that he doesn't have the flap of skin controlling the direction of where things are supposed to go. So the aid and attendance will assist his family, and plus, it could possibly move his special monthly compensation higher.
Mm-hmm. And I know it's not always about the compensation, but just getting into the VA system, getting taken care of by the VA. I know he mentioned to me that he wants to continue getting treatment from his medical professional team that took care of him, that basically saved his life from cancer. Well, they did save his life from cancer. What would you say to those that are out there kind of wondering if they have any hope, any light, and they know they've been exposed to burn pits, they're suffering from cancers. Like I mentioned myself, thyroid went bad, gallbladder went bad, digestive system's going bad. For those type of people that are out there, what would you say, what would you recommend that they can, what's going to be on their side to help put the uphill battle for them?
Well, here's the thing, and let's use the example of Nathan Overgaard. The nexus was very, very weak. The nexus tying this back to the military was very weak. However, 3 statements were used. One was the air quality standard that we know is out there. There's a letter out there. I know because when I was in Balad, I saw the letter. And we had a huge burn pit that we were exposed to. But that air quality standard and buddy letters. I have a gentleman right now that out of his unit, 3 of them have come down with an exotic disease, cancer. Okay, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And that's pretty high, so I would say to everybody that's out there that's struggling to get their evidence together, don't give up. Get buddy letters. They work. And if you can get any evidentiary documents produced, I know for us in Iraq, we were able to use the air quality standard letter from Balad, where it highlighted that we were exposed to levels not seen even in the U.S. But fight. Continue the fight. Continue to collect evidence. Don't give up.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. And I do recommend, like I said, with the interview with Nathan, myself, I saw success with the Disabled American Veterans, also known as the DAV. So, there's other service officers out there, right? You can find them.
There are. I recommend to anybody wherever they're at in their state, go to their state's Department of Veterans Affairs, look for the DAV. Okay. Because I'm telling you what, I volunteer to do this. I on average 80 to 90 cases a month. I volunteer to do this because the DAV successfully challenged a ruling by the VA for me, and I won. I got a clear and unmistakable error out of the VA. I had never heard of those. They're rare, but I got my case and I won it. And the DAV helped get me there. So I wholeheartedly support them from a personal level, and I do it from a professional level as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.